Hello, and welcome to week 7 of Human Nutrition. So, last week was all about proteins, and I hope that by now you realize just how important proteins are to our bodies. So, whether it's making an enzyme or a hormone or something structural like a muscle, or even helping with our immune system, we need protein for a lot of really important functions in our bodies. Because of that, we tend to not want to use protein as our energy source. We can if we have to, but that's fairly low on the priority list of what we do with protein unless it's absolutely necessary. I hope that you were also able to see that we don't all need the same amount of protein. So a lot of it depends on our body size. So we did calculations where we looked at that RDA for protein in terms of our grams per kilogram of body weight. So the bigger the person, the more the protein. We also found that activity level and what we do for activity also had a role in determining how much protein we need. So again, that kind of concludes not only protein, but that is also going to conclude our macronutrients. So we talked about carbohydrates, we talked about lipids, and then finally we've talked about proteins as being those nutrients that we need in fairly large amounts. Now, we also have mentioned that those are the nutrients that are going to provide us with energy. And that gives us a nice little segue into what we're talking about this week, which is all about energy, energy balance, and a healthy body weight. So we're going to be looking at how much energy do we really need to fuel our bodies. And a lot of times we talk about that generic 2,000 calorie diet. We see that on our nutrition facts labels, and a lot of times we hear about that in popular media. And the question is, do we really need 2,000 calories? And the answer is possibly. However, I find that for a lot of people, 2,000 calories is much more than what they need. So if you're not very active or you're not very large, you're going to find you don't need that much. But on the flip side, we're going to see that people who are very active or perhaps very muscular, such as an athlete, are going to need maybe twice that much. So as we go through our chapter this week, we're going to be seeing that there are lots of factors that are going to influence how much energy I need. So I've talked about a few already, things like my activity level, but we'll also see that our age, so depending on whether we're in a state of growth or in development or not, makes a difference. How big I am, so body weight plays a role, but also height will play a role in that. And just metabolic rate. So we'll see that our metabolism changes with age, but it also has a lot to do with body composition. So somebody who is more muscular is going to burn energy at a faster rate, even at rest, than somebody who has a lot higher percent body fat. So when we talk about energy balance, we use a very easy equation. We talk about energy in and energy out, or energy expended. And certainly we know where we get energy in from. That's our food intake. And energy expenditure could be things like exercise. It could also be daily activities like, vacuuming, playing with your kids, things like that that are not really that high intensity. Brushing your teeth, you use some energy with that. And then we can also think about things that are going to be not so much that we think about and are like, oh, I'm planning to do this, but we use some energy just to be. There's a certain amount of energy that we require just to have our cellular processes happen. We need a little bit of energy to digest foods. So there are lots of different ways that we expend energy. If we look at that equation, we say that if things are balanced, so if I have energy in equaling energy out, I am going to be able to maintain my current body weight. However, if I am taking in more calories than I expend, I would anticipate that I would gain weight because I'll have extra energy I don't need that your body stores as energy for later. On the flip side, if you are expending more energy and or taking in less, you would expect to lose weight. Now, that equation is very simplistic, but we find that it doesn't always work out quite as simplistically when we talk about the real human condition as what we might anticipate. So, for example, there are lots of things that are going to influence that energy in part that make it, especially when we're looking at it in terms of weight loss, that make it kind of tough. So you're like, yeah, just eat less. Well, there are a lot of things that influence that eating. Things like portion sizes and just our biological programming to want to eat, especially things like fat and sugar. Just the availability of food. Again, we're kind of programmed that when we see food or we smell food, we're programmed that we should eat it. It's a survival mechanism. So that, coupled with the fact that our current lifestyle makes it a little bit more challenging to be more active, makes that whole equation a little bit harder to manage. So we're going to see that that is the next piece that we're going to talk about is more that weight loss part. And how do we manage and maintain a healthy body weight? So for our assignment this week, you're going to be looking at fad diets and weight loss diets. And we know that there are all sorts of really crazy things that we can do to lose weight. Basically, we just have to do something to restrict our caloric intake. And there are lots of really odd things that we can do to make that happen. We'll look at that, and the challenge of this is that we want to not only think in the short term, but we want to think long term, because we can do those crazy things. We can eat cabbage soup, or we can drink lemon water with cayenne pepper and maple syrup for a couple days, and you will be pretty much assured that you will lose weight. However, our big thing that we really want to focus on is not just the immediate weight loss, but maintaining that weight loss and maintaining that healthy body weight. So we're going to evaluate some fad diets and see what we think. We'll see that there are some that are just really obnoxiously hard to follow for a long period of time. You might think, okay, I could maybe eat cabbage soup for a day, but for 3 weeks, I think not. We might also see that there are many of them that are not very nutritionally adequate, that because we're so restrictive, that we just can't meet our nutrient requirements. And we want to think not only in terms of weight loss, but we should be thinking in terms of health as well. So that's going to be your assignment, is to look at some of those fad diets and do that evaluation. Your discussions are going to allow you a couple of different options as always. So the first option is going to be looking at scientifically based weight loss programs or weight loss aids. So we really want to be looking at scientific evidence, and that kind of comes back to those fad diets, but we'll see that there are all sorts of things out there, and we're going to be able to go beyond just the diet piece of this and look at other things that are associated with weight loss. So there are lots of supplements that we might be doing, other things like hypnosis, and we want to see, well, what's the science out there? What research studies have been done that would show us that, yes, this is actually safe and effective to do? We all want that quick fix, unfortunately, and that's what the weight loss industry is preying on, is the idea that we want something that's not going to make us work very hard, but will take those pounds off really, really fast. So again, you'll get the opportunity to look at that and make that determination of, is this safe, is this effective, or is this something that I would just be wasting my money and time on doing? The second option is to take a look at our calorie counts on our restaurant menus. So fairly recently, the piece of legislation that has been in the works for quite a while was actually put into place. So it's now mandated that any restaurant chain that has 20 or more individual stores has to put calorie information on their menus. So that when you go up to the counter and you're going to order, you look at the menu and you're going to order, you're going to know exactly how many calories that particular dish is going to provide for you. Now, you may not see it on all restaurant menus because it doesn't really affect the small guys, the little mom and pop restaurants, the ones that only have maybe a couple of different restaurants, even though they're a small chain. It's the big chains that are really affected, those that have, again, that 20 or more individual stores. You might have also already seen a lot of calorie counts for quite a few years because there were quite a few restaurants, Panera was one of them, that they jumped on the bandwagon right away and started to put calorie information on their menus. So what we get to do for our discussion is to think about, well, how effective is this? Is this really a good strategy? And some questions that we might ask are, okay, well, are people really going to be using this? Do they know what this information means? And kind of evaluating it from that perspective. Are there maybe some other ideas that would be better, that would actually provide us with more or better information to help people to make those healthy choices? I have to say that unfortunately the research so far is not looking super promising. They've actually, this has been going on in New York City for quite a while. And so they've actually done quite a bit of interesting research looking at what happens with New York and the habits that people have there versus other cities. They've been using some places in New Jersey as kind of that control group. So they found that unfortunately for a lot of people, it's not really working as well as they had hoped. For the first thing is that the people who are already interested in health, they're all over this. They're the ones that are really jumping on and looking at those calories and making different choices. But they're the ones that are already interested in nutrition. The people who really probably need this the most either don't care, don't want to know, because it's going to mess up what they want to eat and make them feel bad about it, or they maybe don't really understand calories. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we're finding is that people don't really have a good understanding of how many calories they need. Is 800 calories for a sandwich too much? They might look at that and say, oh, no, that's fine. I can eat that. That doesn't sound like much. And it might be a quarter of what they should have for the whole day. So you're going to have the opportunity to kind of evaluate that on your own and see what conclusions you come up with. So I have to conclude by saying that I do a lot of weight loss counseling. A lot of my clients are very overweight. I have quite a few clients that are in the 500, 400, 300 pound range. For example, one of my dear sweet clients, Mercy, when we first started meeting, she weighed 513 pounds. The good news is that over the past couple years, she has lost really close to 200 pounds. She's just creeping up on that at about 180 pounds that she's lost. It's been a slow, challenging journey. She's done it with diet changes and exercise, even though some of her exercise is pretty limited to a little bit of pool work and some chair exercises just because of her body weight. But she's done it without any supplements, without weight loss surgery, without anything except just changing her habits. So I have to say that this whole topic of obesity and weight loss is something that's very dear to my heart. While I have never been overweight, over the years I've had so many clients that are, and I see the challenges that they face with losing weight and maintaining that weight loss and a lot of the emotional impact of being overweight as well. So I would invite you, if you have further questions about this topic, feel free to post them in our kind of general questions area, or if you are struggling personally with some weight loss issues and would like to talk with me personally, I'm always happy to do that. So with that, I'm going to conclude. I wish you a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing what we come up with in our discussions and our assignment this week.